Hotel workers of Reddit, what is the worst thing you have found in a room after a guest stay? It was a family retreat / kids birthday party. The adults were getting sheet-faced, while the kids were in the presidential suite raising hell. They had decided to have a fully stocked ice cream bar, and allowed the kids to do what they wanted with it. M&Ms crushed into the carpet, chocolate footprints on the walls, whipped cream ducking everywhere. Fruit punch spilled on the bed. In total we had to charge them about $7K in damages, which they took to court, because they thought the cleanup would be included. That's why we did it at a hotel. They also smashed glass all over our dog hiking trail, which I had to clean up. A bear. First, you gotta understand that a lot needs to happen for this to occur. Our lowest floor was still about 1.5 meters from the ground, and each outside room had a balcony rail. However, a guest had decided to want to unload his motorcycle from his truck and leave the ramp down, so I'm assuming he could ride the bike up when he was done. The guest that was staying in the room had room service, decided to leave the food uncovered and the balcony doors open, and later went to the hotel pool / spa to relax. Upon returning, they had gone to us at reception and said that there was a bear in the room. Puzzled, we quietly approached the room and slowly opened the door. Lo and behold, there was a bear eating room service and making a mess of my afternoon. We called Parks Canada to deal with it. Guest was not charged a cleaning fee. TLDR, a bear used a car as a ramp to get into a room at the property. A bachelorette party came through, and after they left the next night we had a new rule that charges a $400 glitter fee. But I mean, you couldn't see the floor, so much glitter. It's been a few years and you can probably still find glitter in the carpet throughout the hotel. Woman with misophobia, fear of germs, stayed with us. She never let the cleaning ladies into the room as she preferred to clean it herself. One day she leaves to go out and removes the "Do Disturb" sign. Maid calls down and says the room has a strong chemical odor and found bags of pee and poop in the drawers. 3 guys in one room left all of their windows open and lights on overnight in the summer. I have never seen so many different types of bug flying around the room. It was terrifying. We ran in spraying bug killer like our lives depended on it, then ran out and left the room for an hour. We came back to a floor that was almost black with dead bugs. I can still hear the crunching. A little late, but I have too. Found bloody parrot feathers all over a room. They claimed it was service animal, it wasn't, and had gotten too stressed and pulled all of its plumage out. The guest tried to blame the hotel for noise. We charged them for the cleanup. Was balancing month end one day when the front was swarmed with police cars. They raided a room with no notice to us at the front desk. Turned out a pimp was cooking meth in one of rooms with 2 prostitutes and a dog. There was a short standoff before everyone was arrested. Their car was seemingly forgotten about in the parking lot, but it disappeared a week later. We were unable to charge for damages since all of their cards were stolen. I worked at a hotel a few years ago, front desk. I checked out a nice couple in the morning. They were very friendly, said they enjoyed their stay. Then housekeeping got to their room. The poor woman looked shell-shocked. I got to go through the room with a camera and my supervisor to document the state of the room. 2 large, black, double-headed dildos, lots of Ziploc baggies with powdery residue, syringes, some used, some still with caps on them, including 2 in the toilet, and more travel-sized bottles of baby oil than I could count. We also found what appeared to be feces and blood smeared all over the bedding and walls, and a small digital camera. Police were called, descriptions of them taken, and all their information they had used to check in. I quit soon after, so I don't know if they ever found them or pressed charges. I worked security for a while at a really large hotel. 2 stand out in my mind. The first, a guest that went out by ambulance because of some allergic reaction, what the guest claimed at least. The room was full of black and bloody diarrhea. The smell was horrible. I have never smelled shit like that and hope to never again gag. The second wasn't something left but a assistance call. Elderly man was unresponsive when we got there. We used a defibrillator on him till the ambulance arrived, and he actually survived. He came back to the hotel some months later to thank us. It was great. Most of those calls didn't end well, so having one who survived and came back to say hey was nice. Pizza. And not just like leftovers. An entire pizza. And not a single slice of it in the box. The first red flag we found was the slice of pizza smeared all over on the TV. Then we saw 2 slices side by side, like they had worn them for slippers, and dragged their feet across the floor. 1 slice in the dresser, 1 in the nightstand, 1 in the sheets, and 1 in the bathroom sink. We cleaned the room as normal and put all the pizza in the box. The whole time I'm wondering why someone would do this. Was the pizza not good? Was 1 slice enough and you had to buy the whole thing? I'm doing the final checks in the room and it still smells like pizza. I flick the lamp on and look for the final slice. I finally find it, shadowed in the lampshade. This individual had smeared the last slice on the inside of the lampshade. That was the final piece of the puzzle or puzzle. This person bought an entire pizza just to hide it in his hotel room. A dead body. Someone ended up killing themselves in the hotel room by hanging themselves in the closet. Was in there a few days before we found him. 25 years ago I worked at a snooty part of a snooty ski resort in Park City, Utah. Most of the regular guests were just typical old rich white dudes, but during Sundance season though, the celebrities come out. There is a certain musician, entertaining us for decades now, who has a disgusting hobby, or did in the early 90s at least. Next time you're cutting footless, or jetting close to the danger zone, just know that Kenny Loggins gives his entire family coffee ground enemas, which leaves a giant mess, and leaves it for the hotel staff to clean up. Twice in one stay. 2 worst experiences I had to witness were, a couple came to the desk early in the AM. They clearly had been in an all-out fist fight. They were a cash-paying customer and all they said was, "Sorry, we got in a fight. There is blood in the room. We are HIV positive." Then they took off. Room was an absolute horror show. Had to hire special cleaners to come gut the room, and ended up replacing basically everything in the room. Room was up for almost a year. Same hotel. We had some wards of the state types staying. Worst were a couple with a newborn. They couldn't afford basically anything, so made the decision to use our towels as diapers. The state wouldn't let us kick them out, and they were just taking the towels off the carts. Ended up having to evict them from the hotel as they had been there long enough to establish residency. Someone pooped in the nightstand. It had been there long enough to dry out, so it took nearly an hour to scrub it clean. Another room had bloody menstrual pads stuck all over the walls at random. It was a hallway. I worked the front desk. A little league baseball team was staying the night and a guest complained to my manager about bats flying around. My manager assumed the baseball team was just being rowdy and headed up to tell them to calm down. Turns out it wasn't baseball bats. Just a normal old flying bat hanging out in the hallway. I've had this same issue. A guest came down while I was setting up breakfast to tell me a bat was flying on 3rd floor. Thought she was mistaken because it seemed impossible to me. Not wrong. Bat just flying up and down the hallway, roosting on the curtains for a few minutes whenever it became too tired to keep flying. I lucked out and had a farmer show up who had to deal with this multiple times. Threw a towel over him and shook it out the window. I had no idea how to handle it and was just useless outside of telling people to mind the bat. Not sure if I'd rather have a bat or a rowdy baseball team though. Less upset guests with a bat. A syringe under a mattress. After I felt a prick on the end of my finger. I was tucking in a sheet under the bed and there were actually 2 uncovered insulin needles under there. I got rushed to hospital. Hepatitis shots and a tetanus shot. 2 different HIV prevention medication for a month. Monthly blood tests for about a year. I'm fine. And it barely stuck me in truth. But I was already afraid of needles and disease. I still feel traumatized. I was not going to post at all, but I've always wondered if there was anything else I should have done. The doctors assured me that they were more precautious than necessary. People that have died. Feces on the walls and furniture along with vomit, drug paraphernalia, drugs, and once a gun. Feces and vomit is the worst though. Old couple checked out and left a huge box of 6 toys. Not that bad, right? We keep items for 90 days. Hotel gets first dibs after that. Say it's an iPad that would be good for something, then whoever found it gets second dibs, then GM then it's whoever wants it. Head housekeeper kept them locked in her desk BC she wanted first dibs and was scared someone else would take them. Worked at an upscale ski resort. One family let their toilet training kid pee behind the toilet and under the sink throughout their whole visit, then put our white towels on top of it to help clean up the mess. Whole place smelled like a freaking rhino enclosure. Ruined the towels. Worst to clean up, not because it was gross, but because it was annoying and time consuming, was popcorn. A baseball team stayed in a couple rooms and I guess they had those like caramel popcorn balls that they had just thrown all over the room, at the walls, furniture. It stuck to the carpet and was almost impossible to vacuum. I do hotel renovations, so we find anything the housekeepers have forgotten over the years. Most often we find dirty magazines, clothing, children's toys, sometimes drugs in super random places lol. I used to tour with a band. We'd regularly play in New York City and we'd always stay in the same hotel every time we came through. The hotel was small and there was a lot of us, so we pretty regularly stayed on the same floors in the same rooms. One of the guys on the crew smoked a lot of weed, and to make sure he always had some he would hide it in weird places in every room he stayed in. When we check in he'd always hit up the group text to see who had the room he was in last time. There's a story for why you find drugs in super random places. Not a hotel worker, but once stayed in a resort in the Dominican where someone had sheet in the safe. Or I guess carried their sheet to the safe. Not sure. Either way, I guess the staff hadn't checked to see if anything was in there when cleaning after the last people. Edit. Just got a message from someone who was wondering when it was, because the same thing happened in their hotel in 2012. Quite alarming that this apparently isn't uncommon. Not me but my dad. He was the director of housekeeping for a worldwide hotel chain. His housekeepers didn't know what to do with a girthy 12-inch dildo suction cupped on the writing table. It was still very moist he said. Then he looked up who stayed in the room to see if maybe they wanted it back, but it was too tiny, frail little old ladies canes and all, and he said it was too embarrassing to contact them, so he waited a bit to see if they'd call asking for it, but they never did. He ended up throwing it out. Edit. Someone gilded my dad's girthy wet dildo story. Thank you, you sick freak. Let's be friends.